Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are from PettyRevenge. Story 1 is by Clara Forsyth. I was in the Battle for High School ranking for nearly 2.5 years without knowing it. I was very ill during 8th grade, in the US, so that's the last year of grade school before high school, and missed a few months completely, and was only allowed to do half days for another month or so. Even though I was doing homework, I wasn't getting the in-person instruction, and I'm more of a visual or auditory learner. So needless to say, my grades weren't great, and therefore placement in high school was at a remedial level my freshman year. But they had figured out what was wrong with me, and the medication had worked. So I had no attendance issues and had nearly a 4.0 GPA. I was the only person from my grade school to go to this high school. The city line was literally our back fence. So I had to make friends with people who had gone to the same grade their entire lives. I made a few friends. Most of them were in the marching band, even though I wasn't. Unbeknownst to me, this was also when this feud started. Another member of the band who was friends with some of my little circle was very invested in being in the top 10 of the class. And suddenly she was at 11 because I was in the top 10. I don't know why she had no issues with the other 9. I obviously knew I was in the top 10, actually was salutatorian at the end, but ranked, I think, 4th, because 3 people were valedictorians with perfect 4.0 GPAs, but had no idea this was bothering anyone except me. To get to the school I wanted to apply to, I needed to be in the good classes, especially math. I have always and will always hate math. But sophomore year, I had to take algebra and geometry to get caught up. I guarantee that year took several years off my life, and I'm amazed I didn't get gray hair. But I succeeded. It wasn't until junior year when we were starting ACT prep classes that one of my friends made an offhand comment to the effect of, "If you do well on the ACTs, then Crystal will have to stop saying you cheated your way to the top." What now? Literally the entire group I was sitting with, about 9 people, are just staring at me until someone finally said, "You know Crystal has been saying you took those easy classes freshman year to boost your GPA, right?" No, in fact I did not. Everyone looked very uncomfortable. I was still trying to make sense of that when someone helpfully chimed in. "Yeah, she's been talking all summer about how when she gets better ACT score than you, it will prove you shouldn't be in the top 10. Okay, so does she think she gets to take my spot if she gets a higher score? To this day, I have no clue why this was so important to her. But eventually, the day came when we got our scores back, and she was telling the whole school about her 31, which is a very good score. She was extremely intelligent, which is why I was so baffled that this mattered to her. And I just said nothing, because I knew she would ask me in front of everyone, and while I thought the whole thing was ridiculous, I had a bit of a petty streak. So, during lunch, she stood up at the end of our lunch table and basically yelled, "Clara, did you hear? I got a 31. "Sure did. Congratulations." She stood there a minute while I drank my soda. Then, finally, "Well, I haven't heard from anyone what you got. Don't you want to share?" "I don't mind. I got a 32. It was like watching a balloon deflate. It was certainly not my proudest moment, but at the same time, if you're gonna be in intense competition for something, you should maybe at least let your opponent know about it. That's one thing I don't miss about high school. Pretty much any girl who's been in high school knows that there are always petty girls that have these imagined competitions. Who looks better? Who has nicer clothes? Who has whiter teeth? And sometimes, yes, who has the highest GPA? Just petty girls. I guess human beings are always going to be competitive, but yeah, girls in high school can be some of the worst. Our next story is by Cup Custard. What I did when a house guest made my partner cry on his birthday. This was years ago, and when I think about it, I actually feel like I showed a lot of restraint in my reaction. Maybe. You tell me. So years ago, my partner was about to turn 25. We were living about 1.5 hours from each other at the time, as he was enrolled in an undergraduate program at the time. Tiny bit of backstory. We met in high school when I joined his Dungeons & Dragons group he was usually Dungeon Master for. He was and is an amazing DM, and he's incredibly dedicated, homebrew champion, so he usually runs the games people want to play and doesn't often get a chance to be a player himself. When he does get the chance, he's often privately a little disappointed because the games are rarely as robust or well-guided as the ones he puts together. It's just one of those things. C'est la vie. He's private in general and very sweet-natured to people, so he would never vocalize that to anyone but me, but I know he's always looking for that special group or dynamic. Anyway, so when he was in school, he joined a D&D group up there that met once a week. And it was awesome. The DM was really great, and my partner was so excited, telling me about the campaign every time I'd pick him up for weekends together. Life was good for my guy, and I was really happy for him. So his birthday rolls around, and we decided that he'd be coming home for the weekend to host his D&D group at my place for Friday night. That way they could play and not interrupt their schedule. We made a little party out of it, and I baked some key lime cupcakes for everyone. Oh, I love key lime. They took breaks, and we all hung out a little bit. I noticed over the course of the evening that one guy, I'll call him Red, sure did seem to point out my partner's age frequently. The group was all guys 20 to 22 years old, and my partner had just turned 25. I thought, jerk, but I kept quiet. My partner hates scenes or confrontations, and it was his birthday, so I definitely wasn't going to escalate if I didn't have to. I went to bed when they began playing again about 10:30 p.m. I wake up at around 1 a.m. when my partner comes to bed, and just kind of snuggle up as the big spoon, which I normally am. I hear him sniffling and breathing weird, so I realize he's crying. I ask what's wrong, what happened, and he's like, nothing. So I'm like, oh, sweetheart. And he starts crying harder and is like, I don't know, I just kind of regret inviting everyone here. I was having fun, but it turned into a weird manhood measuring thing, and Red made even nastier jokes about me being a transfer student after you left, and I felt like crap. Why did I think this was a good idea? I was seeing red. I comforted him and tried to play it cool. I held him and let him cry, and to be honest, that plus the drinks helped in getting him to calm down and go to sleep quickly. I decided I needed to sleep on it and see if I still felt the need to be all Amélie about it in the morning. When I woke, I used the bathroom, walked out, and saw this jerk on the sofa asleep with his beer cans. He was the only one drinking Heinekens from last night all over my living room, and I was like, yeah, no, I still feel like revenge is necessary. You come into my home as my guest and make my boyfriend cry, you get some kind of revenge. While the guests slept, I went into the kitchen, grabbed my powdered cayenne pepper seasoning, and covered his discarded clothes with cayenne powder. I also doused his sandals. Then, and maybe this was a step too far, but I don't think I'd do it again for what it's worth, I shook it into his hair. We all went out for breakfast, and he was scratching his feet and his head the whole time. I still kinda wish I could have publicly embarrassed him like he did my partner, but I couldn't think of a way to do that without further embarrassing my partner. It still makes me so angry when I think about it. Grrr. That person's got your back, but when men hang out with each other, it is all too common for them to do this sort of thing. Like, especially on a birthday, somebody might make a joke about how much older you are than everybody else. I think in most cases it's forgivable, but it really depends on what sort of things this guy said to your boyfriend. And I'm sure it only got worse when he consumed more beers. Your boyfriend, though, learned a lesson. This guy is not a good friend. He should definitely not hang out with him again. Just do that much and this guy will know he messed up. Don't hang out with him anymore. Don't go and be around him anymore. He sounds like a jerk. It gives them some sort of ego boost, or that's the only way they know how to socialize sometimes. I don't think that they always do it to be malicious, but I don't know. The next story is a very short one, but it's kind of amusing, so I figured I'd share it, by Gammon Bud. They wouldn't serve soft drink to a minor, so I let them waste 2 drinks. One day my brother and I went to a beachside pub early in the day. It was literally just the 2 of us in there. I was 18 and he was 14. I gave him some cash and asked him to grab us a couple of cans of Coke. The bartender huffed and said they don't serve minors and sent him away. So I then walked over and they have a smug look on their faces while they crack open the 2 cans of Coke as I'm arriving at the bar. I then said, "I'll have 2 lemonades. Thanks." The look, the questioning, the jaw drop. It was so satisfying. I know that there's pubs and bars that have strict rules where they won't serve minors at all. But if these are the only 2 guests that you have, why not make an exception? Makes me wonder what time of the day it was. He says it was early in the day, but he didn't say how early in the day it was. If it was like late at night, I would understand them refusing service. But it doesn't make any sense to refuse it early in the day. They just asked for Cokes. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have an air-conditioned day.